Hi, everybody. Over the last many years, as part of Viptela, we've had several interesting companies take the ONUG stage and share their deployments. Yesterday, as I was standing in the ONUG booth, Cisco booth, many customers came by recollecting the presentations by Acadia Healthcare, The Gap, Agilent, as well as Kindred Healthcare. Now, all of them were significant deployments, and they were very large. Today, we're going to talk about a much smaller deployment. It is significant because it represents the future in which SD-WAN is heading. And it also represents a different way of looking at the full architecture. And to make it easy on everybody here, I have intentionally, so we have Johnsonville Sausages, and I've intentionally removed any image of breakfast meats or sausages so we can stay concentrated on the essentials of SD-WAN. A little bit about me, I'm Lloyd Noronha. I was heading global marketing at Viptela, part of the early team there even before we coined the term SD-WAN. And I remember presenting, joining ONUG on the very first ONUG, in fact, when we kicked it off maybe 6 years back. And with me on stage is Anthony.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. I'm Anthony Wild from Johnsonville Sausage. I manage global network operations out of Sheboygan Falls. And I'm really excited to talk to you today and kind of share our vision and strategy and story with you.
Thank you, Anthony. So I thought a good place to start this from an audience perspective would be essentially your approach. Your approach is not WAN specific or data center specific, but you're looking at this from an end-to-end basis. And you have a multi-year vision in place. And the one place I see you extremely adamant is no operational silos. Can you share that a bit with us?
That's right. So in the introduction you mentioned, we're not very large compared to most. We're smaller. But that doesn't change the mandate. We still need to operate securely. We still need to deliver services on a global scale. And the fact of the matter is the sheer number of endpoints we track is exploding, from IoT to industrial automation to endpoints, mobile computing, server workloads. We track some 50,000 endpoints. And for a company of our size, that's huge. And so really our mandate is building complementary solutions, right? Solutions in the network that are aware of each other so that you can essentially run the network on 1- to 2-step workflows. When a server gets spun up, the WAN automatically applies the right security policy or the app route policy, or the firewall is adaptive when you profile something on the floor from a forklift to an HVAC controller. So we really need to not make the network a science project, as more of simple, repeatable 1- to 2-step workflows. And
more from an end-to-end basis, right from a server configuration, you wanted to spin up everything related to all parts of the infrastructure.
Absolutely, yeah. And if we can hand off some of those steps to the server team when they spin up a workload, they're aware of the application priority. So if we can hand that to them, in my mind, that's winning.
Wonderful. And for those of you who don't know Johnsonville Sausages, they're a company that's about 75 years old. They have about 8 locations that are significant in size from a campus perspective, and a range of other branch locations. About 4,000 employees, and some of the key applications are VDI, IoT, factory automation, SAP. But I think what really stands out on the slides is you're running all this with a team of just 4.
Absolutely, yeah. That's our core network team responsible for wired, wireless. And really, that's the spirit of today's presentation, is doing more with less. Yes, we're small, but we follow the sun. We've got locations worldwide. And so we need to keep the IT lights on, but we also need to support growth and innovation.
Right. Wonderful. So now let's hit the more embarrassing parts of the presentation. This is where your life was getting hell, and a whole bunch of problem situations quite recently, actually. And the central theme around this is one of lack of reliability on the WAN.
Absolutely. Just the nature of today's application landscape, it's so dynamic. I mean, we have to support ERP and industrial automation, and these are the things that we know about, right? And these things change whenever there's a security patch or a software upgrade. The ports might change, the behavior might change. The application landscape is evolving, the network has to adapt as well. And the other side of that, too, is shadow IT is a problem. Anybody with a corporate credit card can go out and buy SaaS these days, so we need to support those applications as well and know about them. And so it was incredibly frustrating about a year ago when the business came to us and said, trucks aren't moving, forklifts aren't moving, hand scanners aren't working from 3 to 5 on any given day, the application isn't performing well. And when you really lack that ownership and visibility in your network, it's frustrating. You don't have the tools in your tool belt, and that's when we really kind of understood we need to change. We need to take ownership and command of this network and really understand what's going on if we're going to improve.
Okay. And can you share a little bit, coming back to your architecture now, you have a traditional DMVPN architecture going into, with all these problems. Can you share a little bit more about the fact that you felt crippled so in a way that you couldn't even respond to these problems?
Right. So the WAN and network as a whole, we had no platform to stand on. We had kind of various silos that had evolved over time. We had some DMVPN that linked sites up, our core sites. We had some firewalls that supported IKE tunnels from the robos in the smaller branch offices. We had some remote access VPN, but it was really an inherited mess, right? We had no central control tower to kind of oversee and manage it. And so really at that time we knew there was a need for change. And that's when we brought in some consultants, and kind of the central theme of the question we always get asked is, what does great look like? What do your applications look like? And even we lack the tools to even answer that basic question.
Right, right. And as you went through this change, I mean, the one conversation I recollect is the one I had with National Instruments on the ONUG stage in March, that when National Instruments described, they were in a similar situation. They had a DMVPN architecture that was a global architecture like yours, but their approach was drastically different. They took the approach of creating a whole new SD-WAN overlay network and then staging it in phases and then cutting over it at some later point, which is where they are today. But your approach was different. You actually, you did a live cut through, and in addition to that, you did the entire SD-WAN overlay on existing devices, which were about 5 years old.
Right. So we started with the traditional approach of vendor scorecarding, constructing RFPs. But the one thing that was unique that came out of Discovery was we had an abundance of ISR routers. We had some that were kind of repurposed when we converted to SIP telephony that were sitting. We had some that were supporting DMVPN. But we had a lot, and Cisco was gaining traction and building this success story on, you can blow the dust off this router, pull the engine out, and put in this SD-WAN engine by virtue of a simple software upgrade. So at that time, we delivered an SOS to our account team and said, hey, we've got the hardware, can you help us out? And at that time, that's when we turned the key, right? We delivered we upgraded the software, and I'll never forget the first day turning it on and within minutes seeing the ADC data, the application visibility flow across, and truly at that time we took command of the network and we took ownership and really were on our way to success.
Okay, wonderful. And to be a little more clear on this, you had a dual-homed DMVPN architecture and you tried to kind of take off one device at a time onto the new overlay architecture?
Correct. So at each site we had two DMVPN routers, both ISR 4Ks, and the first few trials we converted one,
right,
and we were successful. It was a simple routing adjacency change, and we were off in the runnings. And we were aggressive in our conversion, but it was out of necessity. It was peak summer hours, peak grilling season. We make America's finest sausage, and people are ready to grill. So the plants need to run, and we had no time to waste. We had to do the conversion, and it was wildly successful.
Okay, fantastic. And I know the one thing you're really excited about is your templatized architecture and the automated way of bringing sites up. So as I bring up this next slide, we're going to play a short video. Can you share with us what's happening, Anthony?
Right, so on the right side of the screen, what we're seeing in near real time is a branch being brought up from the ground up. And that includes a WAN controller, but it also includes the latest Wi-Fi 6 compatible controller. It also includes the next generation firewall.
Right.
And the reason I bring this up is really we're bringing this branch up in 30 minutes to an hour, provided we have the ISP already in the house, which is completely different from the way we used to do business. And I know I'm not the only person in the room that has been challenged by the business saying, hey, we've got some beachhead operation in location X. We're not quite so sure what it's going to be, but we know that there's going to be some sort of need for IT services, so we need you to facilitate, and we need you to be incredibly cost conscious. What we're deploying right now is the full complement of network services, Wi-Fi 6 controller, next generation firewall, WAN service meshing to our private cloud, and our regional cloud presence. We're doing it elegantly inside of a 1U box using network function virtualization. Very inexpensive and easy to deploy. And when you kind of pan out and you compare that to the way we used to do business, really it's a no-brainer.
Right. And this template architecture does achieve to an extent your end-to-end vision. But more importantly, it has achieved something for you in terms of getting control on policy drifts, right? Can you share a little bit on that as well?
Absolutely. So today I wear my SD-WAN hat, but tomorrow I might be facilitating or helping out with some new M&A, or I might be doing a Wi-Fi 6 deployment, or I might be doing firewalls. We need to live and die by templates, because if I come back to this in 6 months and I go and deploy WAN services again,
right,
it needs to be exactly as it was 6 months prior. I need to answer a few basic questions inside of my template, and I know with great assurance and certainty that I'm going to get the same product as a result.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. And just to educate the audience, this is a sample architecture or sample list of standardized templates that you have that you use to bring up different global sites, correct?
Right. So there, no matter what the shape or size is of the branch or location or campus, we have a template. We know that wherever we go and do business, we're going to have a template. And this is really, the strategy reaches beyond WAN. We're doing this with the full complement of technology, whether it's SD access or whether it's firepower threat defense, applying an access control policy template using an inheritance. So this really, again, enables us to do more with less, to operate with a lean IT team and deliver a high level of assurance and automation.
Right, fantastic. So as we move into your end state, right, as you've achieved these migrations, and you've seen the benefits of what those migrations are, I'd like to kind of dig deeper into, I mean, there were some obvious ones, like you did a live cut through, so you didn't have any downtime in the network. You also used existing hardware, so you didn't encounter that, CapEx charge, right? What more can you share with us in terms of, how you can benefit from that architecture change, especially if you have a traditional architecture today?
Really, when we modernized the WAN architecture, we did the same with telecom. And so it's not listed on this slide, but we've had SD-WAN now for 6 months.
Right.
And in that time, we've completely shuttered our global MPLS usage and saved the company a substantial amount of money. And that's money that we can reinvest back into innovation and better serving our users.
Right.
For me, that's a huge win.
Okay, fantastic. And in terms of you also mentioned policy drifts and you're saying telecom costs has also been a significant part. So was there any transition of telecom lines that you did as well?
Absolutely. And shuttering all those MPLS connections, we moved to more commodified transport. So basic internet, business internet, and our international locations and our domestic ones as well. Okay.
And was there like a bandwidth change through that, or did you have to kind of go down or up?
Absolutely. We inherited a whole slew of telecom contracts at the time without really knowing, did we need them, right? And when you turn on that network-based application recognition and you can see the bandwidth being used in real time, you can tweak those set screws. And absolutely, we resized, we got rid of the legacy connectivity, and we modernized the telecom landscape as well.
Fantastic. And despite these significant milestones in the WAN, you're not done yet, right? I mean, you're looking at a series of changes that you're going to do over the next year or so, tied to that vision slide that we saw right at the beginning. Can you describe a little bit about that?
Right. So there's been some things that have been out of reach of us. We've got industrial complexes, wastewater treatment. It's always been infeasible to run fiber, but there's this massive data lake that exists at these locations. Anywhere you have controls or controls data, you really want to leverage that. And there's the safety element as well. So having a connected enterprise is really an attractive value proposition for us. So some of the inexpensive hardware that supports SD-WAN on an industrial level, like the 1101 that we have on the slide here, is something that's we're currently testing right now. And I'm excited that we'll be able to extend the network reachability out to those places that it's never been feasible before.
Okay, okay. And overall, you are heading towards the vision of that single architecture, single policy end-to-end, intent, based on an intent of an SLA or an intent of a compliance or something like that.
Right. So someday in the near future, the vision is server engineer goes to spin up a workload, they attach it to a port group, they check a box. They're closest, they know what the priority and the class of service should be. So before a network team even pours the first cup of coffee, we already have that level of assurance and security because it's part of the server team's workflow now. So if we can kind of automate those workflows, it's our second bullet here on the slide. That's going to be the next level for us.
Okay, fantastic. And I think we've covered the most essential parts that we wanted to cover. So we could actually pause for some Q&A. If anybody has questions to Anthony, you could ask it now on stage, or we could always wait after this presentation and chat more.
All right, thank you. Yeah, hey guys, great, actually really great presentation. But maybe one question is around the partnership between you two. So, you guys had a specific problem, you know, Cisco, you partnered with them to like solve that. So can you talk a little bit about how the partnership worked between the two of you?
So we mentioned reaching out to our account team, really sending out that SOS when we know we needed drastic change. But the other side of that, when Lloyd talked about how aggressive we were in our migration, one thing that's worth mentioning is that if you've ever worked with Cisco TAC or their solution support, they're absolutely second to none. We couldn't be as aggressive as we were with our migration if we weren't backed by such a qualified group of individuals that are working 24/7. And we wholeheartedly lean on TAC. So something I think that really maximized our success.
Okay, fantastic. Although I must say, Nick, I was nervous for a few seconds there. So. Any other questions? Okay, so Anthony will be around most of the morning, and we're going to be standing on the side. If anyone has questions, please reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to educate you on any particular areas that you want. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anthony. This is fantastic. Thank you. You've been generous with the information. Thank you.
Thank you.